we obviously here to talk about A Desert, which is about to release in the UK. This is a film that I think I saw at Tribeca and, was instantly just wowed by. I guess, the obvious first question, Joshua, is, how did this idea come to you? Because it's not the most straightforward of films.
Yeah, well, it really started with this idea of this photographer character, this very specific type of fine artist photographer that I thought would make a uh, great subject for a sort of genre movie. And what I did in coming up with the sort of structure of the movie is I thought it would be an interesting way to approach writing the script would be to like create this photographer character's body of work. So I have a background in photography. So I spent about a year and a half kind of taking photographs like this character would. And what that really did is on these like road trips I was taking in like the, sort of American Southwest, is I was finding locations that were sparking ideas. And that's ultimately the genesis of the script was through making all of these photographs that were Alex Clark's body of work.
Mm. And how did you find that experience, kind of collecting all of those images, because it must, like you say, you became your protagonist in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, I like driving, and I've been driving and exploring like the desert around, California, Arizona, Nevada for a number of years now. So for me, it was just great. And just like going down the sort of roads less traveled, there's an excitement to it. You never know what you're going to find. And, and in this case, a number of the locations that are in a desert were places that I found and we actually ended up shooting at. So that stuff was really cool. And it was cool to see it kind of materialize in the movie, just from me finding it to now this character's finding it to now it's on this movie. So it all has this very weird meta relationship for me.
Mm. And as an actor, Zachary, what was it about, the character of Rennie and this story that made you want to get involved with it?
It was what's on the page. You know, the dialogue was so interesting and charged and dynamic. And, more so than anything, it was the whole story. It's the way that that screenplay presented itself, and you continue to slowly reveal what's going on, and it's a big, mystery, and these twists and turns are exciting. But you look at some of these monologues that Rennie is talking about this rock sculpture or UFOs, and just his relationship with his sister and with the photographer. It's something instantly. I was 3 pages in, and I go, oh yeah, this guy knows what he's doing, and so I was really happy to join the ship.
Mm. And I mean, for you, Joshua, it must be quite nice, to hear an actor saying that because this is your first feature.
Yeah, and no, it is. I mean, I feel, I have a hard time taking positive comments, so I very much appreciate it. But is working with Zach on this. I mean, it's like he brought it. You have an idea, you put it on the page, and then I think I told Zach, there's a handful of moments while we were making the movie where you're like, there's all of these things that can go wrong when you're filming a movie, right? And so you just like try to get all of that to like go right. So you set up, you get the right people for the right job and all of that, and you want to bring this idea in your head, onto the screen and capture that and that feeling, whether it's the look or whatever, you just sort of trying to capture this idea and materialize it. And when we were doing the scene at the Rock, where Zach counts down to 24, and it was like as he was doing it, kind of gave me, like chicken skin, the hair on the back of my neck stood up because I was just like, oh man, this is what I was picturing, and Zach is making it happen. And one of the th other images that kind of became our iconic moment of Zach in the theater, in this sort of like dream moment that we have in the movie, And I was like, that was exactly what I was seeing. So that was Jay Keitel, our cinematographer, making that happen. Zach's performance and those things working in concert with each other. And it's just like that's really gratifying, right? This to see that materialize and being able to work with people like Zach that can, pull that off is it was really, really gratifying.
And Zach kind of going along, I think Rennie kind of sits alongside your characters in, who's watching, and even a little bit, Jasper from 90210, you kind of seem to like to play these kind of like creepy, more intense characters. Why do you think that is?
That's a big question, but I think I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I do know that not all actors enjoy that sort of dark material, and I don't understand that vantage. To me, that stuff is candy, as dark as something may be on the page, I think it's my job to texture it and bring it to life in a whole view. So we're not looking at a mustache twirling villain, so to speak. And that's a hell of a challenge, and it's a lot of fun. And to do different things. You say who's watching, or Jasper or Rennie. To me, they're all very individual specific characters. And sure, there may be a through line of darkness, intensity, but I hope that could also translate to the word depth. And bringing something like Josh's Rennie to life is it's so thrilling. But it's also, I'm prepping something right now that also fits in those words. I find myself going, what the fuck am I going to do? I had the idea when I auditioned or when I met somebody, but then you get close to it and it's like, what the fuck am I going to do? And then you eventually figure it out. And this experience with Josh and Jay and all these, I find myself with wonderful actors. And when you're opposite wonderful actors, that's when, things start crackling and magic happens. So I was really grateful to have Josh at the helm, he's such a tuned in cinephile. He's got great taste, and he's going to swing hard with this film because what he's done so far has led up to here. And the execution is, right on point. It's right on target. And it's really cool to see people take the film in and like appreciate all of those elements that he's like masterfully put together.
One of the aspects I really like about watching a desert is that it feels sweaty. You can feel like the heat of the location kind of like bursting off of the screen. I mean, it's uncomfortable enough to watch. What was it like filming in those environments?
More uncomfortable. It was, I mean, in my infinite wisdom, we shot the movie in July. And we filmed, as you can see in the movie, in the desert. And so it was very hot. And I think the hottest day that we ended up filming was like 118 degrees Fahrenheit. And that was a day where we were doing sort of like B-roll type stuff. And it was so hot that the camera would shut off after a couple of minutes. And so we would have to put it back into like the car and blast the air conditioner for like 10 minutes and then take it back out and, try to shade it and shoot for another couple of minutes before it turned off again. So, there's some of these, it's funny. There's a scene where we go to this pet cemetery, and this is a real pet cemetery out in the desert. And the wind is like, just gently rustling the trees. And it's like, oh man, it doesn't look like it's that hot. And that day, and Zach wasn't there for that day at that location. And it's literally, I think it was like 110 degrees, but it felt even hotter than that. And it felt like you were sticking your face in an oven. And I had some moments where, we went out to these sand dunes too. And I was genuinely like, is everybody be okay? Because I kind of have a high threshold for the heat, but maybe not everybody does. So, but yeah, it was very hot. And so I'm glad to see that that translates to the screen, because if it wasn't, I think it would lose some authenticity into it. And it very much, I think, it's this sort of, there's another scene where it gets really windy, and it's a sort of a very important moment between Zach and Alex, the photographer, and it was so windy, and that's not generated by a giant fan off camera because we couldn't afford that. It's just that windy and that punishing, and so being able to just like kind of have the elements against us, I mean, obviously kind of like feeds into like what the movie's about. And it was, you know, even though it was rough at times, I'm glad that we had that experience that way.
And that was the cinema god smiling on us in
Yeah.
that.
And the music, and a lot of the narration, it kind of feels like jazz almost. It's very like loose forming. Was it a similar respect with terms of the acting of the construction, or was it more structured than improv? How did you guys kind of work to make that free flowing vibe when you watch it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised to read the script. Is that the movie is very similar to the script. It does not deviate from the script that much. And so there's obviously certain moments where, I mean, I think some moments were a little bit more improv, but there were specific beats, like the party scene is a little bit more improvised. And Zach and Ashley and Kai, who, are all acting in that scene, they brought something, but I knew I needed to get certain beats within the scene, but I kind of let them go and do what they were going to do and let Jay improvise in terms of how Jay Keitel, the cinematographer, kind of improvise how he was covering some of the scenes, but I knew I needed to get this shot of Rennie looking this way, Alex and Susie doing this, that happening, but we just let it kind of that be improvisational. And I think that is so much more effective, that approach for that particular scene than what we would have ultimately done if I had very strictly been like, okay, it needs to be here, we're going to go over here, we're going to go over here, we're going to go over there. I would have lost that spontaneity that a party degenerative party like they have needs to feel like.
But Kat, it's a testament to the text and then the script because like Josh is saying, we very minorly went off of it, and I would say 95%, maybe 97% or higher is off that page, like Josh is saying when you compare it. But the testament to the script is that it's that good to just jump in and start playing. And it's also a reflection of Josh's skill as a director to not muddy the water until he needs to correct something and let us play and explore and find it. And when he does his job of hiring the right people, that chemistry and alchemy is there and doing its thing. So it was a real joy to kind of bring those moments, and it's cool to hear you say it felt alive and spontaneous even.
Yes. And I guess sort of my final question before I let you both go, why do you hope that audiences take a chance on this film? Why is it important you think that people, see this film?
I think that most people who the people who are going to be aware of this are going to be movie lovers and horror lovers and lovers. And this film is a love letter to all of that. I mean, it truly is. Once you sit your butt in the theater, you're going to just be hit time and time again with all of this reference to cinema and the kind of glory of movies, these different character types and situations. Josh has done a beautiful job of creating a cinematic experience, and that goes down to sound design and to Jay's picture and stars editing, and it's really an experience to see on the big screen. Yeah, I think you'll really enjoy it and not be disappointed.
I don't know what else to say to that. I think we just leave it at that.
Yes. Well, thank you both so much for your time. Like I say, best of luck with it with the UK release. The film is, it's fantastic. And I look forward to, seeing what you both do next.
Thanks, Kat.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.